Man down, matey. Jeremy isn't here, and there was a local boxing event that happened over the weekend. Hi, everybody. We are the Lake Podcast, coming at you from two different continents. I'm one of your hosts, Stefano Hosko, coming at you from New York City. Over here, we got the member of John Jones's legal defense team, Michael Asiffo.
I knew that was coming.
John Jones apologist.
Just general wife beater apologist.
That's a good title. I like that title. Domestic abuse fan, Michael Asiffo. What do you have to say to me?
I do love that domestic abuse, that domestic violence, as they call it. But I don't see the violence in it. It's just putting a woman in her place, I guess.
If you hire a foreign guy to come beat up your wife, is that imported abuse?
I think it's called global abuse at that point.
Global abuse? Globalization, the globalization of abuse. David?
Man, David's just sitting here chomping at the bit,
waiting to rip you apart, Michael.
Our fellow feminist scholar, David Agbaire, is ready to educate us on intersectionality and rattle some statistics.
Did you know 6.7 women? I'm joking. I don't have any statistics.
I know a shocking statistic, by the way, for those of you Brit bongers out there, like David, as you call them. Did you know that in Great Britain, when England loses a soccer game, rates of domestic abuse go up significantly?
Yes.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. It makes a lot of sense, which is sad to say that it's like, oh, yeah, I'm not shocked.
Fuck Britain.
And you can say that.
Your next door neighbor is going to come in a wife beater with a bottle of schnapps. Like, what you say, mate?
Yeah, and a cricket bat.
You talking about the Queen's country?
Hilarious.
With all that being said, I think we're ready to get into the fight. It was a riveting week of fights across the world. We had a lackluster UFC card with a couple of fights. We had Bellator Moscow that had one fight in particular that we'd like to talk about. We had Rico Verhoeven defending his heavyweight title in Glory, which we'll discuss briefly. And we had a KSW event where, some roidy boys ended up punching each other senseless. Roidy boys. That being said, though, subscribe to the podcast. Like the video. Tell your friends and family about it. And with that being said, MMA news transition time. Let's get into the news and views of the week.
All right, Stefano, what you got for us?
Okay, in the new development in the John Jones case, John Jones adds a new member to his legal defense team, Michael Asiffo. You guys go for a second.
They call him the second coming of Johnny Cochran, by the way. I hear good things about him.
Of Johnny who? What is this reference?
Johnny Cochran.
The guy who freed OJ, basically.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't his lawyer Robert Kardashian?
No, they called it the Dream Team. It was the Dream Team. Johnny Cochran, Robert Kardashian.
Well, Mike, if the glove don't fit, you must acquit.
Exactly. So that's our legal defense for John Jones. Yeah. No, okay. In all people are gonna really think I'm being 100% serious. All right. So, what you got? What do you got?
Let's start least interesting to most interesting. Caitlin Chukagian versus Jennifer Maia 2. They fought before?
I didn't know this. Yeah. Apparently so. Okay.
I find Caitlin Chukagian decently interesting at this weight class. If she had a little bit more power, she would be obviously more interesting, but she's kind of like a Holly Holm light. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the thing is with her too, I like her style in terms of high volume, changes levels decently well, at least in terms of the division, and can grapple a little bit. So
good sidekick. Yeah.
She's got weapons like that attack all parts of the body. Like she's got a good combo to the head. I like her kind of like she'll go like upstairs, downstairs with a leg kick. she does commit to the body decently well. Like, it's just that she couldn't knock a mosquito up against the wall. So
Yeah, that's the issue, right? There's a lack of power, then there's pillow hands.
yeah.
So, moving on up, Bellator doing some interesting things. I feel like I'm getting used to saying that. If you'll recall, Kyoji Horiguchi left Risen and joined Bellator. Now he's getting a title shot at 135 against Sergio Pettis. I like this fight. Fun. I expect Horiguchi to win, but Pettis has looked good in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
He's a southpaw who doesn't make use of the double attack enough, I think, but could be fun. Could be a lot of fun. I think if you recall, Horiguchi had the bantamweight Risen title, and he also had the Bellator bantamweight title, which he ended up relinquishing due to injury. I think he beat Darian Caldwell by guillotine twice, once in Risen, once in Bellator. So, thoughts?
Yeah. No, I think it's going to be interesting. I actually do like Kyoji Horiguchi's chances in this one versus Pettis. And I think that ultimately a good Bellator not only benefits Bellator and fans who are looking for the alternative, but it benefits the UFC. Keep in mind they are still going through that antitrust lawsuit. So if they can dangle Bellator being somewhat viable in terms of competition, it helps them as well. So fights like this are only going to help MMA in general, right?
Yeah, they can play the whole act of like, look, we don't hold a candle to them in Europe. When was the last time we had an event in Moscow? So next up on deck, banger alert, banger alert, banger alert, banger alert. Josh Emmett versus Danny Ige. That's a fun fight. Josh Emmett all about stance switching and power hooks, and Danny Ige developed a nice striking game in recent years and a hell of a jiu-jitsu game. So this one looks to be quite fun.
Yeah. You always wonder with Dan Ige though about game plan, game planning,
Yeah.
right? He always kind of seems to come in with the wrong game plan and just gets by on talent.
The choices you make aren't the best, right?
Yeah, right. But if you're good enough to do what you're good enough to do, then who cares, right? Do what gets you to the dance, and it also makes for an exciting fighter. And I think that's the thing. If Danny Ige can just keep on hovering around, but he's got a tough test in Josh Emmett, who is coming off of a knee injury, but
is he? When was the last time that Josh Emmett fought? I feel like it's been forever.
I think the start of 2020 when coronavirus happened, like that little like break they had, and then they had the Apex. I think he was on the first Apex card, and it was against Shane Burgos in a win. But
you're right, Shane Burgos 2020, so it hasn't been that long. Actually it's been kind of long. It's been over a year, I guess. 2020, June of 2020 against Shane Burgos, knocked out Mirsad Bektic, knocked out Michael Johnson, and then before that was lost Jeremy Stevens. So on a bit of a streak. Featherweight's interesting, boys. And next, I believe I'm saying this. I never thought these words would exit my mouth, but Logan Paul versus Mike Tyson in an exhibition bout set for February.
Wait, hold on. Really?
And to God.
You're not kidding. That's
I'm not shitting you. Yeah, this is from a number of legitimate sources. You can look it up if you want. Mike Tyson versus Logan Paul.
The money grab continues. I love how, like, after the Fury versus Wilder fight, I wonder what the appetite for a heavyweight, for these kind of like freak fights is going to be, in my opinion, because I don't know. Like, it just doesn't have the same pop to me.
Yeah, to you, right? Like, we don't give a shit, obviously, but like, we're not Logan Paul fans. There are legions of 14-year-old girls out there who are going to steal their parents' credit cards to pay for this. And quite frankly, like Mike Tyson was able to sell millions against Roy Jones Jr. because, all your Gen Xers out there who are hungry for nostalgia bait are just like, to relive the past.
It also kind of helped that he looked good. And holding like on the pads, like leading up to it. So people were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, he's ooh."
I don't have the appetite for it. I know you guys don't have the appetite for it, but there is an appetite for it, unfortunately. And I think we're
I
just
mean,
gonna have to.
I'll watch on a very legal free stream, but I don't think I would pay money.
I would definitely not ready for this at all. I'm not honestly even sure I'm gonna. It depends on when it is. Like, if there's something else to watch, like I'd honestly rather watch that and just like look at the highlights later because I just don't see. I get Logan Paul fought Floyd Mayweather, and now he's gonna be fighting like Mike Tyson. Like, is the money that good? That's just my question.
Yes. Oh,
The
the
answer
money's
is
good.
yes.
The answer is yes. Look, I won't be paying a red cent for it, but like, if there's a train wreck outside of my house, you better believe I'm going to peek out the window. I won't pay to see said train wreck, but I'll peek out the window. That's all I'm saying.
I was gonna say early predictions, but let's not do that. This is supposed to be a martial arts podcast, so let's not do that. But yeah,
Early prediction: Logan Paul by submission.
yes, yes, I see it by ankle lock.
The sad thing is though, like there's a video of him and Paulo Costa grappling, and we're gonna talk about Paulo Costa in a second. And Logan Paul, not bad, not bad.
Yeah, I mean, how doctored do you think that video is? Like, there's a video afterwards of Paulo Costa knocking him out. Like, really,
Yeah,
you think Logan Paul went there and was?
No, it's fair. It's fair. It was
Are we
after he
talking
got
about
knocked
black
out,
belt
but
Paulo Costa or like a different Paulo Costa?
no,
Paulo Costa.
the Paulo Costa. They went out there. They grappled, and like Logan Paul had like a really nice sweep from bottom too. I was like kind of semi impressed. I was like, whoa. So I just put that out there just to say like,
And I thought I'd finish off with the best for last. This is. Oh man, what are you grumbling about? Thought I'd finish off with the best for last, and this is good. This is good, ladies and gentlemen. This is good. We're getting what we want, and we're getting it in January. A heavyweight title fight for the ages. Of course, I'm talking about Tim Johnson versus Vitaly Mint. No, I'm kidding. Cyril Gane versus Francis Ngannou. Set for UFC 270.
Oh, it's 27, not 22nd.
UFC 270, January 22nd. Yeah.
Okay. I like this a lot. Little side drama here, by the way. This is the last fight on Francis Ngannou's deal, and he's pulling a CM Punk and saying he is not going to re-sign. He's going to stop. He's going to win and leave as the UFC champion.
Dana, bring out if he can get past Cyril Gane, who is which is a big if, because I can see either of these men coming out on top. I really can, especially with Ngannou's new developments. Dana, bring out the cement truck, fill it with liquid gold, and pour it at the foot of Francis Ngannou's porch. For God's sakes, don't let this man go anywhere.
Even if he loses to Gane, like he has to stay in the division. It would be like waving like Derek Lewis, only worse because Francis Ngannou like would be like is with all due respect to Derek Lewis like actually a threat in the heavyweight division. Yeah, man. The more that I think about this, and we can definitely do like a deeper analysis as we get closer to the fight, but the more I'm just not seeing how Ngannou wins this fight. Like he has to go leaps and bounds, like in terms of his striking, in order to catch up with Cyril Gane's like skill level. Because yeah, as we all know, Cyril Gane is probably the most skilled heavyweight that I've ever seen, at least. And what's interesting is I also saw like sparring videos, and you could tell Cyril Gane wasn't really like pushing himself. But Francis was getting the better of him, honestly. Like I gotta say, like in the videos that I saw, like Francis was getting the better of him. So it'll be interesting. But number one, Ngannou has his hands full. Number two, even if he loses, he deserves to be in the UFC because he's one of the most dangerous MMA fighters in the heavyweight division right now, without doubt.
I'll say this to follow that up. I think, one sparring footage could be indicative of some things. It shouldn't necessarily be taken too seriously, I think, right? I mean, there's photos of Cody Garbrandt at times getting the better of TJ Dillashaw in sparring, and then we saw what happened in the fight, right? You never know. People have an off day. Shit happens. But I do think Francis Ngannou has added new tools to his game. I think he can cover distance ridiculously quickly. And I think that both of these men are going to have their hands full. Gon will win. Will Gon win? Probably, but ultimately, I don't think it's something I'd be willing to put money on. But it is something that I will pay money to see.
Yeah. I'll say this as a story here. Professor Frank has a wealth of stories, but the one story that was always weird to me was he was talking about how Chris Lieben in the gym was a technical striker. Do you remember this one, Stefano?
I've never heard this one from him. No.
Yeah, he used to. He told me about how when he would be in the gym and like the few times Chris Lieben was holding the pads or whatever for Chris Lieben. Chris Lieben was a technical striker. Like he would do everything like really well. But for whatever reason, when he was in the cage, his brain turned off and just was like, oh, I'm gonna take 3 punches on the chin, walk by him like a zombie and knock you out. This is all to say that Francis Ngannou in those sparring footages looked pretty, like, actually technically sound. Like, it was, so to say that he doesn't necessarily have an answer or his brain won't all of a sudden turn on to match what Ciryl Gane's kind of throwing is kind of, I don't want to say it won't happen, but I also wouldn't want to say that it's not a possibility that like Francis Ngannou comes out like Francis Ngannou and Ciryl Gane doesn't come out like Ciryl Gane. You know what I'm saying? We have no idea.
Remember the Stipe fight, right?
Exactly, right? We have no idea what Francis Ngannou is working on, or Ciryl Gane, or the adjustments they're making, or what things they will work on because they've seen each other so much at the MMA Factory, right? Yeah. So
that was a while ago at this point, though, Michael. Like Francis Ngannou left the MMA Factory at least 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
So like, it's tough to say like they even know each other. They might have some inkling, but like when you don't spar with somebody for 2 years, like you can't really say that you know what they fight like currently. So I'm with you.
Fair enough.
Totally with you with everything you're saying, but like I think like they're unknown to each other, and I agree. In that clip, like Ngannou looked pretty technical, and Gane was doing his thing, but that's why I was like, okay, like I feel like in a fight situation, Gane would probably turn like the intensity up just a few levels, but then again, Ngannou would probably like be looking to put his lights out as opposed to like trying like technically spar with him. So.
I think there's a lot of question marks, and I think we're going to talk about this more as time goes on. But in the meantime, we have a luscious weekend of combat sports to talk about, my friends. So what do you want to lead with?
I transition.
Well, transition, but okay, all right. Transition.
Let's talk about the one belt.
Transition.
Oh, transition.
Transition.
Ding, ding.
David, don't be disrespectful to the trans community by interrupting my transition.
Trans.
Anyways, what do we lead with? We got UFC, we got Bellator, we got Glory, and we've got KSW. What do you think, boys?
I really want to give Bellator some credit here. Because
what year is it?
It has all the makings of being a disaster. It really did. And by God, I don't know how it happened, but Fedor in a sold out Moscow arena, well, it looked like it was sold out, knocked out the number 2 heavyweight in Bellator in a minute and a half. I don't know.
Question. Just instant question. Is that like impressive for Fedor, or is that an indictment on the quality at heavyweight in Bellator?
I think, honestly,
watch the Ryan Bader fight. Oh, I guess that was light heavyweight, so it doesn't really count.
No, that was heavyweight. Bader moved up to heavyweight. Yeah, he held 2 titles at the same time, light heavyweight and heavyweight.
Watson versus Vadim Nemkov, who has like legit skills. And I don't know about you guys, but I didn't think that was like an especially competitive fight, in my opinion. So, once again, is that an indictment on the heavyweight division, or is like, the renaissance of Fedor?
I'm not going to say renaissance. I think it's heavyweight and weird shit happens. I think Fedor has carried speed and power into his later years, right? obviously his style hasn't aged gracefully, and that a lot of the skills that we saw him rise to the occasion of the Pride 2003 Grand Prix and hold the title for how long was it? 5 consecutive years, and then go on to do what he did elsewhere in Strike Force and in Affliction. I think that what made him great was his well-roundedness as a mixed martial artist. What stayed is speed in his hands. I think Tim Johnson, while a decent fighter, has been a little chinny in recent years. And I think Fedor proved that he can still crack, man. He can still crack. Is he a top 5 heavyweight in the UFC? Probably not. But I do think this is a testament that Fedor still has something left and that heavyweight is wild.
I think it's a color thing because we have seen Fedor be chinny in the UFC. I would even go so far as to say of all the leagues, major MMA leagues, he probably has the worst chin at heavyweight. I would
Fedor?
go that. Yeah, I would say so. I do think like he isn't
worse than Overeem.
Sorry?
Worse than like Overeem.
I think they're 1A, 1B. I would say
Up until recently, Overeem was fighting monsters, though. I mean, so like to call him like super chinny, I think is harsh because he was still getting like racking it. He was in a fight like what was it, 3-4 fight win streak like not too long ago. So
he's great. I feel like that's more of a testament to his ability to adapt and his the fact that he's a striking maestro and quite competent grappling as well. But go on. Yeah. So
sorry, go on, Mike.
Yeah, no, but yeah, like it just goes to show you, like, look, this is a guy who lost to Matt Mitrione. Let's call this spade, right? No disrespect, Matt, by the way, if you want to come on the show. But Fedor, not only is he the fastest heavyweight today, probably, Ciryl Gane's faster. I'd say Ciryl Gane's faster. But Fedor's had speed.
Don't do that.
No, I actually genuinely think Fedor is like one of the fastest heavyweights in the world. Like, genuinely do believe that. And he's got power, he's got speed, and he's picked up some tools. Like that check left hook was singing that night. Was singing yesterday. It was working.
I don't be a hater, but like he threw it like 3 times, maybe, like in the entire fight. It was a 2-minute fight. Like, no, but I feel like sometimes you can read a little bit too. I'm cutting off your opinion pretty much today. Go on.
No, it's fair. It's fair. Like, because it's like, okay, what would have happened if the fight were to ferment and Timothy Johnson starts to see that left hook coming a little more? Like, you never know, right? But it was singing. Like, it was cracking him, like, well. And he was getting out the side door. And, heavyweight's weird. Like, Derek Lewis fought for an interim title twice. He fought for an interim title and a heavyweight title, but he's also a guy who lost to Mark Hunt and lost to Junior Dos Santos, right? So it's like,
and Sean Jordan, who sucks. Like, no offense, Sean Jordan, but damn, Mike is spitting fire today. Mike's trying to piss a few people off. Yeah. He woke up and chose violence. He's not, Okay, Mike's saying, Sean Jordan, come catch these hands. I've got John Jones in my corner now, all right?
Watch Sean Jordan see me on the stream and whoop my ass, but it's weird. I would say column A, column B, but don't disrespect Fedor though, by saying, hey, Bellator sucks.
I'm with both you guys. I think that first of all, I thought this event was going to be a disaster. Like, you're going to bring Fedor into Moscow, put him up against your number 2 heavyweight, and he's going to get knocked unconscious in front of a silent crowd. It's going to be nuts. It's going to be, why would you do that? Put him against Junior Dos Santos. Put him against somebody that is at least tasteful. But I think there's both of you are right to an extent. Like, clearly, Fedor put in the hours for this fight. Clearly, there's something left in the tank. Like, we see Anderson Silva doing his damn thing over in boxing now at an advanced age. And heavyweight's also weird. Maybe Bellator's heavyweight division is not that strong. I mean, Ryan Bader came up and cleaned out the division. And let's be real, a lot of Bellator's heavyweights are leftovers from the UFC or, no disrespect, but yeah, it's not as strong as the UFC's heavyweight division. Even still, Timothy Johnson in the UFC, what would he be? Where would he be ranked? Top 20, maybe? Top 15? Even still, it's impressive that Fedor at his age can come in and knock out somebody that in a major promotion fought for a world title. Heavyweight's weird. Heavyweight's weird.
I'm just looking at Bellator's 10 weight right now. Like you got Ryan Bader. Wait, this has to be old, man. Yeah, you got Ryan Bader, still number one. Moldavsky, who I've never heard of.
Valentin
Timothy John.
Moldavsky is good.
Is this
Their
right?
champion's Minikov, right?
No,
Yeah.
the champion's Bader
It's
still.
Bader
Bader still has the belt.
So they haven't done their tournament yet.
No,
Czech Congo
Minikov
is still
won.
Minikov beat Bader?
I'm sure he did.
Bader had both belts and just lost to. He didn't relinquish any. He just lost one of them to Nemkov. That's what I'm assuming.
Oh wait, sorry, he didn't lose to
interim
Nemkov.
champion. Sorry,
He lost to Corey Anderson. He didn't lose to Nemkov. He lost to Corey Anderson. I think that's the fight I was thinking.
No, so before that, Bader lost to who am I?
He did lose to Nemkov. I watched that fight. Yeah, he lost to Nemkov.
He lost to Nemkov for the belt, for the light heavyweight belt, right? But in terms of the heavyweight division, he still kept his heavyweight title.
Got it.
So
okay, Minikov. It's not Minikov. Sorry, I made a mistake. Minikov's not that guy either. Yeah, Bader is still champion with Valentin Moldavsky as interim champion. Okay, and Valentin Moldavsky is the prodigy of Fedor, as is the one who beat him down a weight class. Whose name I forget.
The plot thickens. No, but the point I was going to make, full respects to Czech Congo. He's ranked number 3 right now in the heavyweight rankings, and then all the way down to number 10 is Jake Hager, who has 4 fights. So it's fair to say
something. Is currently in A&W as a wrestler.
That is hilarious. That
He's
is so funny.
AMW. Is he wrestling the new chicken sandwich?
Sorry, AEW.
He's fighting that like plump dude who's in all the commercials,
I can't believe it's not me. Yeah,
try the new AMW Beyond Beef armbar. I hope these motherfuckers know not to call me during a podcast.
I don't know if it was if it's like the deepest division, but I would, I don't want to be too critical because every, fighters, it's tough to fight. But I wouldn't say Timothy Johnson looked especially good. I thought he rushed in a lot with his hands down, which is why he got caught. I thought even his spam uppercuts to the body from Fedor, they didn't look great, in my humble opinion. And, as I put that on the, I say that knowing it's a 2-minute fight, so you can't really read too much into it. But, Fedor looked good for what he had to do. I agree with you guys. I think his hands are still super quick. I think, there was enough there to show he could still crack. But
I came in at I haven't seen Fedor weigh 230 in a long time.
Yeah, he looked pretty slim for Fedor, I would say. I still think with all the, I'm not even gonna say it because who knows what Russians are listening in. But let's just say is Fedor as big as your modern heavyweights? I would say no, personally. If you look at Ngannou, who's cutting weight.
Wait, David, I just want to say, just a quick interjection. Keep in mind, Stipe in his last fight weighed in at 230 pounds.
Sure, that's fair. That's a fair point. But I don't know. I would just say, look at Cyril Gane, look at Francis Ngannou. I mean, come on, man.
Cyril Gane is 240 easy.
That's a big boy.
Yeah,
that's a big boy, and he's what 6'5", 6'6", giant.
He's 250, I believe. Cyril Gane. He's in the 250.
So yeah, no, I think Fedor still looked good. He still looked competitive, with all due respect for Bellator, but is it a renaissance back to the old Fedor where he was? I wouldn't even say arguable. He was the best heavyweight in the world. I wouldn't go that far personally, but.
So before we talk,
Sorry, what?
Oh, I was just going to say before we tie a bow on this, because I think that's about all we want to talk about for the event. What's next for Fedor? And I'll give you a hint. It's retirement.
Hilarious. I think he has a couple more fights in him. I think he fights until he loses, personally.
No, David, it's retirement.
He's 40. You know what's incredible too? He's not actually the oldest heavyweight on the roster.
Who's older?
It's Czech Congo.
Congo's older than Fedor?
Yeah, Congo's 46.
Yeah, and Fedor's 42.
40, Fedor's 45. So like,
shouts out to Czech Congo, man. Seriously, like shouts out to Czech Congo. That's if I can be fighting competitively and be like ranked number 3 in like Bellator at 46, I must be doing something right. Like shouts out to
Color me tickled pink. That's crazy.
I'm like, I just want to confirm like 100% because I remember, 46, May 17th, 1975. God bless that guy, bro. And he came on the show too, so friend of the show. My whole point to say is that like if Anderson Silva at 45 years old is beating former world champions who are still like who are still like ranked in, some boxing commissions, and Czech Congo at 46 is ranked number 3, and we never said, hey, maybe Czech Congo should retire. Why do we play this game with Fedor? And I know why.
Because Czech Congo is a friend of the pod, Michael. Come on, don't do that.
I know we could play the game with Czech. Like we like him for sure, but we also have to have integrity. Like if we, no,
Speak for yourself, man. Speak for yourself. I have no integrity, no morals. That's what they're teaching us here in law school. Go on.
No, in fairness, like I actually thought like Czech Congo looked really good and really quick and really impressive for his age. Like we were sitting here and I asked him like, "Yo, do you have the Fountain of Youth in your backyard? Like, what's going on here, brother?" Right?
And he said, "Let me be honest with you, Michael. It is just that I eat clean, I train very hard, and the French women they keep me youthful." So.
But and again, like physically looks great, It's because he didn't remember Stefano's name. That's why. But, I'm sorry, I couldn't resist.
Because I'm white, isn't it?
My point is that like, I think.
All right, final thoughts, guys. Final thoughts.
Yeah. Sorry. My point is that. Look, if Fedor has shown the propensity to perform and he doesn't want to retire and he's 4-2 in Bellator, I'm inclined to think that like maybe give him one more fight, and if it's too ridiculous, then we call it a retirement. But right now, it's not about legacy at this point. We know he's in the twilight. Fight until you feel.
Make Fedor versus Czech Congo. I'd like to see that.
Good idea. Good idea.
That's actually a good idea.
All right, moving on. We will. What do you guys think? Probably the main and co-main event of this UFC card are all we really need to cover, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, so let me just pull this bad boy up here. We bad boys for life. Can
we talk about the fight leading up to the fight drama with Costa and
yes,
Vettori?
Yes, we can.
Mike has been fucking jizzing in his pants at the thought of being able to admonish someone. Look, Mike, let me just lead. We agree with you. All right, missing weight by 20 pounds is not doable. Okay, can't be done. 20-pound weight miss is not acceptable.
Michael, just say it.
I've been scratching.
Mike, say the thing. Say the
thing.
Make
the weight. No, actually, it's more like make the damn weight.
I feel
Stay off the damn Twinkies. I don't know.
No,
he says that there's going to be something to explain this.
He had COVID. No? He had COVID, and it was recovering from an injury. in his last fight, if I'm not mistaken.
You know,
So it was a hard training camp, from what I understand.
In that case, I think it's forgivable.
honestly, I'm inclined to believe it's something mental, to be honest. Like I really do. And
Dude showed up. Dude showed up
yeah,
and put on a performance, an excellent performance, if not, well, maybe not excellent, but he put on a
Top notch.
spirited performance.
yeah, it was a he showed some chutzpah out there, and so it's this weird dichotomy that you have over this week where he was clearly not conducting himself in a manner that's professional, and clearly, like just even from a well, I shouldn't say it like that, but like from a human being integrity perspective. Like, let's say you sign on, like, you got what I'm trying to say, like you didn't even try. Like, you know what I'm saying? There was a sense of he didn't even try. He made references to the point that he didn't even know how Marvin Vettori fights. There is a lack of professionalism there, and I think part of it is, I don't know what's going on in his life, but you speculate based on things you hear, and you're like, I think some of it is mental. I really do. I really think, like, thinking about it, thinking about kind of just the stuff, I think a lot, whether it's COVID, whether it's the contract situation, whether it's the Israel Adesanya loss, a lot of things are just, I think, breaking him down. But when you're in there, some people find solace in their fighting, and he put on a spirited performance and deceptively good cardio, in my opinion. So,
yeah, I think the UFC has shown a bit of a double standard in that they're willing to accommodate main event fighters so that the card doesn't fall apart. Because let's be honest, this card was thin. It was thin on the talent, right? It was sparse, and the card would have collapsed. So, for the sake of self-interest, they bumped it up a weight class. They bumped up the fight 20 pounds. Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be a precedent going forward, and Vettori still got 20% of his purse. But quite frankly, it is dangerous for the part of Vettori. Like, hey, this guy didn't take weight, and he's coming in. For me, the power of Costa was, Mike and I had this discussion earlier. Well, Vettori was like running away with the striking numbers. My God, that open side body kick sounded like you were hitting a piece of ham with a baseball bat. It's crazy. Vettori has a head like an anvil. And early rounds, I gave the second and fifth to Costa. Second based on the knockdown. Obviously, the point deduction nullifies that. And fifth, just based on the fact that he got into the groove and it looked like a classic Costa fight. Pushing forward. Yeah. Landing.
I gave him 1, 2, and 5.
You gave
Costa 1 and 1?
Yeah.
I think you need to rewatch the fight, my friend.
Okay, so here's the thing. I have a couple notes like on it, and I'll start with the Oh, you got notes too?
I took the notes, man. I literally said
notes
the first thing.
Guys, you want to start jerking yourself off while we're having notes? I bring notes to every episode, for God's sakes. I start taking notes, and they think.
Hold on, but because
you're doing your job, congrats.
I never do it. I never do my job. So, one time, pat myself on the back. But in all seriousness, so one of my notes was like, the scoring is interesting because while I'm not mad at 48-46 all across the board, right? Like, I can see a world where, you give Vettori, I guess that would mean he would win 1, 3, 4.
48-46 means he won
3 rounds.
3 rounds, and there was 1 point deduction. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Which I'm inclined to agree with. I truly believe in my heart the second round and the fifth round could arguably be a 10-8.
I don't know if I agree with the second round being a 10-8. I think there's a better argument for the fifth round being a 10-8 with all the one-way traffic that was going on. And to be honest, I wouldn't have been mad if it was called that way. It was a close competitive fight. Yeah.
Okay, let me explain. Sorry. Because I'm hearing some feedback in the back. I apologize. But let me explain why I would say the second round's a 10-8. Because knockdowns are considered 10-8s, right? Am I wrong or am I tripping?
That's boxing rules, Mike.
Okay.
Knockdowns, I think, can be considered 10-8s. I don't think that's necessarily the case in all cases. In the
Okay. I can see that. And then Marvin Vettori did run away with it in the later part of that round. So maybe you know what? I can see that. I'll concede that point. I'll concede that point.
I thought I thought Costa looked good. For first of all, I just want to make the point that it's not just that he didn't make the initial weight; it's that he didn't make the catch weight that he himself set, which is crazy. I don't think I've ever heard that. Like I've heard like moving into a catch weight, but then failing to make the catch weight. Anyway, yeah, I thought he looked good, man. Like I thought like his kicks were crazy. Like whether they were leg kicks or especially those body kicks were vicious. And I thought his striking looked good. While I understand Vettori ran away with the striking numbers. Honestly, like looking back, like I can't, other than a few straight lefts, which I think were like money for him all night, I can't think of too many shots that Vettori like seriously landed, especially in that first round. Like Vettori, there was one where like Costa swings with his right and Vettori ducks and then counters with like I think it was like a 3 or 4 piece combo, and finishes it off with knees. Like that was good, but other than that, that was a Costa round for me. And I feel like Costa, even though Vettori was walking Costa down for the most part, I thought Costa was kind of playing the counterpunch power game, in my opinion. Like, I know that's not usually what he does. He didn't look like vintage Costa, who's like walking people down into the corner and just like wailing on them. But I thought like, there was never a point in the fight where I thought like it was being outstruck, in my opinion. So I really don't see. I mean, it depends on how much you value takedowns, which I guess I could see as an argument for why you would give the first round to Vettori. But other than that, like I really don't see what Vettori did that like would negate, the great work done by Costa, in my opinion.
I think throughout the fight there was a lot of volume from Vettori, and I think one of the interesting things that we learned in this fight that I suspected is that Vettori does certain things defensively really well, mostly that pull. He pulls well, and then he'll come back with a cross hook immediately, right? He targeted the body well. The one thing we found out about his defense, I think, is that he isn't that very defensively, and a lot of why he doesn't get hit a lot is because he's able to smother and, end striking exchanges with wrestling and tie-ups, which he didn't do for whatever reason in this fight. One thing he did do that I loved, and you alluded to it earlier, I think a lot of the volume was accumulated with Costa up against the fence, slopping in that double collar tie after the lead right hook and just working in and out of the clinch with knees and body work. And I think that had its effect over the rounds. I think there was a point, it might have even been in the second round, maybe it was the third, where Vettori wobbled Costa as well. Costa, though, is half the man on the rear foot as he is on offense. I believe that. He's not as good as a single shot sniper because he, frankly, on the back foot doesn't move his feet that much. I think, though, things that he did very well is I like the body work, and I think that it had an effect on Vettori's diminished output in the fifth round. Because Vettori has a very competent wrestler, good double leg, works well up against the fence, but his attempts just seem to fall short in the fifth round. And I think that was an accumulation of the body work of Costa, slotting in that body kick, slotting in that right hand to the body when he had the chance. And it did a lot to cut combinations off and prevent the pressure of Vettori. I just thought it was an exciting fight overall.
I like that fight, man. I thought like Costa looked very good in terms. I've already said that, but in terms of his body work, kind of agreeing with what you're saying. One thing that did surprise me was Vettori's jab was also landing like frequently throughout the fight. I think it was actually catching like Costa off guard because he would like try to rush in and get smacked with the jab like instantly. So I thought like he did a good job. And I gotta say, and this will lead to another point I was gonna make, but look at me putting all these weird segues. But I think Vettori's striking has significantly improved. Like he might be one of the. It's actually astonishing watching like his striking now to like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Like he's significantly improved. He like For him to go,
It's the Rafael Cordero effect at King's MMA, man. I'm telling you, like when you get to work with Rafael, it makes you like 8 times better. What I will say though, just to kind of point to it, is that like me and Stefano had this conversation off air, like earlier this morning, and I remember I thought like the striking was closer than the numbers would indicate.
me too.
I did. Now, I didn't think that doesn't mean to say that I thought Paulo Costa won the first round, but I definitely was like, wait a second, he outstruck him by how much?
Yeah,
Right? Like
especially to the head, right? Especially to the head.
Yeah, I saw
I
34.
I'm with
I was
like
like,
151 or something. I'm like, wait, no. Like, did I
think a
watch this
part of
fight?
that. I think a part of that is because of how hard Costa hit. His striking exchanges just really drew our attention. You know what I mean? Whereas a lot of those were defining moments within the round where we're like, like for instance, that head kick that he set up for the knockdown in the second round, classic. Just throw the cross. That you throw the cross halfway and then throw the kick as they slip it. Beautiful, uttered off that, gorgeous. Like
it's weird because Costa like out southpawed the southpaw. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Although Vettori did a couple of things, if you don't mind me saying, that I think were very interesting. David mentioned that jab, and he would angle off to the outside beautifully off of that jab, and just like it would just frustrate the pressure of Costa so much. And another thing that I thought that he did very well in the early rounds that he got away with a little bit was the hand fight. He was just checking the lead hand of Costa and using that as a measure of distance to like pull back and come back and throw strikes in, specifically slotting in that cross hook over the top. Didn't target the legs as much as I would have liked to see, and I think the numbers reflected that. But another trick from Costa I wanted to mention was that front kick to the body, which those strikes are debilitating, man. Those front kicks to the body, to the bladder.
It's garbage.
John, I was watching a brief, Jean-Charles Skarbowski. He's check out his YouTube channel if you can. You can. I was on his Reddit page the other day. He's just showing you gold, and he was showing this teep and this snap kick actually, and it was targeting the bladder. And he's like, yeah, a few of these, it's going to change the course of a fight, like guaranteed. I've shut people down with this, and I'm like, oh my god, targeting the bladder. I've never thought about it. And then like clockwork. Like clockwork, Costa comes in and starts slotting in those front kicks to the body, and clearly they added up, right? Vettori
fifth round, Marvin Vettori was just not there. Like it was one-way traffic.
I thought like Vettori did a good job. As you said, we already said this, but his chin is like legendary stuff. Like at this point, like I can see why he's never been finished, because that head kick from Costa caught him clean as you could possibly hope, and he literally just like ate it and continued to fight. Like you got it. And honestly, some of the strikes, there was even one where Costa comes in with a right and as on the chin as possible, and he just like eats it and gets back into it. I do feel like eventually Costa kind of wisened up and went to the body, and that's kind of why he was having more success in the fifth. Some would say if he had started doing that maybe earlier, then it probably would have been a different fight.
I agree. Yeah. The head of Vettori is hard to hit when he keeps pulling back and then coming back in with volume, especially if you're throwing in single strikes like Costa was. But yeah, the body was there to be hit.
Man, there was a stupid moment in, I think, the fourth or the third. No, it was the third, where Costa goes for the guillotine. Right?
Oh my god, that was awful, right? That was awful.
Oh my god. First of all,
for me to critique a UFC, middleweight contender's technique, but my god, what was that? That looked like a white belt tournament.
Oh man, and this is a black belt. Like this is a legit like black belt coached by one of the best to ever do it. Going for a game, like first of all, tactically, why? Like the Darce is the better option, which you had, by the way, had right there, and second of all, you stuff to take up, stand up, like what I'm saying, like just but irregardless, like it just seemed like Costa just made
not a word, Mike.
Huh?
Regardless,
it just seemed like Costa made a lot of interesting decisions, some that paid off, some that didn't, like the team. There was, I will say, okay, Any other technical things that anyone else wants to bring up before I do make this point? Because it's about the refereeing. Because I like it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, but
You first.
I was gonna say, and this is just a general side point. How good is Israel at Adesanya, man? Because for him to make like beating both these guys look like light work, like easy work, like this was a great fight by two evenly like matched competitors who I think would give anybody in the middleweight and honestly, even in the light heavyweight like division, like a lot of trouble. So for Adesanya to like style on these two guys, like man, like his striking must be like on like a different level because
But
as I
how
said,
good is Jan Blachowicz, who shut down Israel Adesanya? You know?
really,
Oh
really,
yeah, well, how good is Coriander? I'm kidding.
it's hilarious. And also so Costa
MMA mouth, MMA mouth.
defense, like wrestling defensively, like or good defensive wrestling. I thought in the first round, and I think in the second round he got taken down, but after that, like each time Vettori would try to go for whether it's like a body lock or go for like a takedown, like I thought he did a good job in kind of staying safe, and I think he even landed his own takedown at one point. So I know that's not his strong point. He's definitely more of a jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai guy, but I thought he did a good job in like stopping Vettori from doing what Vittori's known for, which is kind of like wrestling you to the ground and then dominating with his like top pressure. So
I'm with you. I would have liked to have seen Vettori establish his wrestling a little bit earlier and just eat up large chunks of this fight in the clinch. Obviously, it wouldn't have made for as entertaining a fight, but it would have made for a less competitive fight on his end, I think. I don't know why he didn't do that. Maybe the size. But I think, yeah. Although a bigger opponent who's missed weight, like you don't have to get the takedown. You can just wear on them in the clinch. And over time, that'll have an attritive effect on their cardio. But I do think I just wanted to draw attention. I thought the takedown that he did hit was really cool, where it was such a dramatic takedown where it looked like something out of a movie, where he was able to slip outside the lead hand of Costa, and Costa overshot so far that Vettori ends up on his back and then hits that beautiful back trip that Mike knows that I like. I just wanted to draw attention to that. But Mike, you had something to say about the refereeing.
Yeah. Okay. Look, Jason Herzog, I think, is the new gold standard. He really repped a great night. But I want to ask you guys your opinion. Did you think the point deduction was a little quick, and maybe it's because of the antics of the week that he kind of allowed things to, allowed himself to get swept up in the moment and give that point?
100% agree, Michael. I thought like the point deduction was way too quick. It was way too quick. We probably won't talk about this fight, but I watched the Darian Grant versus Trinaldo fight, or is it Darian White? I don't know. I'll have to look it up later. But
Dawson Grant.
No, you're both wrong. Grant Dawson fought in the co-main event. Francesco Trinaldo fought David Grant.
David Grant. Okay, yeah. I watched that fight, and he was warning Trinaldo, and I don't think it was Jason Herzog, but that referee warned Trinaldo like for pretty much like 2 rounds before like the eye poke happened, and he took the point. This one, like I could barely hear the warnings. I thought like he kind of rushed into taking the point off of Costa, and to do it in a round where he was arguably winning as well. Like I don't know, I felt like it was a little harsh. We've seen guys, do even worse, and also I felt like it was weirdly a fairly natural movement where you're swinging your arm and going for the kick, and
like it just seemed like a MMA play, right? Like I didn't like the call. And he did say he warned him, but it's like my thing is like, okay, when you're facing Southpaw Orthodox, hand fighting is a legitimate part of the game.
Yeah.
Right?
So, I agree. Go ahead. I interrupted.
No, go ahead. Did you hear it? Did you hear the warning? Or
I didn't hear the warning. Maybe it was mid-fight, but it wasn't like a hard warning. It wasn't like a, hey, I'm going to, obviously it's up to the referee's discretion, and like maybe getting harder on enforcement is something that could benefit less eye pokes. I did think it was a bit harsh. I thought it was a bit harsh. I think some amount of eye pokes happened, and this didn't seem intentional. Yeah, obviously it's up to the referee's discretion, so he's allowed to do it. But I do think Herzog was on a bit of a trigger finger with that.
With Costa. Like I think with Costa especially because of what like again, Costa's antics all week. Maybe people were upset with him. You know, everyone has biases. And I'm not saying Herzog's a bad rep. I think Herzog is the best rep we've got. You know? Yeah, so I don't mind it. I'm not mad at Herzog, and I get it. It's just I thought the hook was a little quick. I thought the point was a little quick. Yeah, like
And it kind of changed the fight for me because I think, even though Costa kind of arguably won the rest of that round, like I thought, I don't know, for me it just kind of changed the fight. Like Costa was in a losing position after that.
David, with that, if you remove that point deduction, I think you wouldn't be crazy to call that fight a draw, or even to say that.
I thought it was a draw with the point deduction, personally. Like maybe my math is wrong and I need to go back and rewatch, but
I'm not willing to fight you on that, honestly. With how close and competitive that fight was, I'm not willing to fight you on that.
Yeah, like it felt so close to me that I was like, when I saw the striking numbers, I was like, huh? Like I didn't remember it like that. And I even talked about it. It's like, like Stefano brought up the point to me. It's like the UFC is not the PFL in terms of like striking percentage and significant strikes versus like landed strike and stuff like that. In the sense that it's just a guy with a clicker, clicking how many times he thinks he landed.
Doesn't that take David? Doesn't that take a little bit of the magic out of it for you? The significant strikes are counted. It's literally just a guy with a laptop, like strike.
Definitely does. And once again, I will have to rewatch it, but I do not know how they got like near 200 significant. The keyword is significant strikes for Vettori, like versus like Costa. Like no, I just didn't see that many strikes.
Right. And the other thing is like, let's say like, if it's not a jab, everything all of a sudden is a significant strike. So if like someone lands like a going away, fade away left hook, significant strike. It's like, okay, come on.
They must have counted the jabs. Like that's the only way they could have gone to 151 like heads, like significant head strikes. They must have counted the jabs because other than that, like I don't know how. I get that he had more volume, but like, yeah, no, I thought the count was weird. Like the strike count was weird. I thought the eye poke thing and taking the point off was kind of weird. I felt kind of bad for Costa, actually. Even like the commentators were kind of talking trash. In the second round, they're like, "Oh, Costa's gas. He's not gonna make it. Oh no, he's done. He's done out here." It's the fifth. He makes it to the fifth round. They're like, "Oh, he's surprised." Like, yeah, like he's a professional, man. Like he does.
I think they made some incorrect calls. Yeah, I think the commentary was. I'm not going to say biased, but I do think they made some incorrect calls. In earnest, though, I really do. I think sometimes commentators in general are a little too quick to say that someone's gassed when they're not.
Agree. Yeah. And to be fair, like Costa was breathing heavily out of his mouth, but like, I mean, it's like the end of like the first round. You can't say he's gassed. Like, come on, man. Like, that's not fair. Like, I get it. He's slamming those body kicks, and then I think it was like the third or the fourth round, he throws like a spinning back kick. I'm like, okay, like it's like, oh, that's a big movement. I was like, okay, well, yeah, clearly he's not gassed. I just thought it was weird, and maybe it's once again indicative of the MMA community's attitude towards Costa right now. But MMA doesn't like bully guys. Doesn't like bullies.
Do you know what something frustrates me as well that I hear on commentary is anytime a fighter does absolutely anything, they're like, "Oh, you shouldn't do that. That's going to gas him out." It's like, well, let's fucking wait and see if it does. Like, these are professional athletes. This is their career. They're supposed to do this. Oh, he's wrestling. He went for a takedown. That might gas him out. Or maybe it fucking won't. Or maybe he'll push on.
And he'll push through being tired and do something and build on it. It's like,
yeah, it boggles my mind. Like, no. The act of fighting isn't always going to put you at a point where you're like, oh, he's doing something. He's going to be like, no, fucking shut up. I'm tired of hearing it. Oh, he threw a jab. Oh, anything wrestling. anything wrestling oriented, it pisses me off because it's like, I can wrestle for 15 minutes. I can do it. I can wrestle for 15 minutes against a willing opponent. I'm sure most people in the UFC can. Oh, he grabbed his leg. Oh, he grabbed his wrist. He's not going to be able to breathe in a minute. Like, no, shut the fuck up. Stop it. Stop it. You know that's not true. Stop. Enough. Let's call it a day. When someone's tired, that's when you can tell me they're tired. I don't want to hear something might make a guy tired. You know?
And we'll talk about this in the next fight. But when you're Grant Dawson collapsing to the floor, okay, say he's tired then. But like if he's breathing heavy, like maybe that's just like how he's breathing. Like you know what I mean? But
Yeah,
to be
precisely.
Just speaking from experience though, so maybe for those guys, they might feel like, these are big movements and you can get tired like that. I don't know. I'm trying to shoot them some failure.
Even if it does make you tired, it's like, and what? Yes, I'm tired. And you know what? I'm going to march to the center of the cage. I'm going to lift my opponent above my head, and then I'm going to slam him in my own corner. I'm tired. Okay, yeah, I'm tired.
I'm tired. Like, that's the part that, like this is part of the game.
But that's the thing. Like, it's part of the game. Here's okay. See, this is the problem, is that, like, and I try to explain this to a lot of my students, like, it's not that you're not going to get tired in a fight. It's how do you react when you're tired, right? And I think a lot of people misconceive what happens when people are gassed. It's the ability to no longer react when you're tired. There is a point. There's like a point where it's like, okay, I'm tired, and then now it's I cannot react anymore.
Yeah.
Right? And
your
I think
body
what
doesn't
the
respond.
commentators are missing the point of, I don't know why, because Michael Bisping was the king of like not reacting under being tired. So I don't know how he doesn't get this, but there is a point. There is a point of no return. There's a breaking point. There's a point where you're saying, nope, I cannot do this no more. That is being gassed. It's different from being tired. So when you're going, oh, he's going to gas himself up, it's like, yeah, no shit, but is he going to continue? Is he going to continue is the difference.
Do you know what's a no? I got to go after this just because Boomy's asking me to go out now. So I'm going to have to leave, unfortunately, in a second. But I just want to make this point. You know who's the worst for this? And I've been hearing him less and less in commentary is Joe Rogan. Because he'll say it when somebody is like unloading punches on someone's face. It's like, maybe he's going to gas himself out. It's like, I don't know. If I could choose to be the person throwing punches or the person receiving them, I'm going to be the motherfucker throwing punches. But I think what I'm doing to you by bludgeoning you in the face with my fist is going to take more out of you than me throwing the punch. I'm sorry. That's just how it works.
Yeah.
99% of the time, unless Chris Lieben is being hit by a 5-year-old girl, the person absorbing the strike is going to be worse for wear than the person throwing the punches, unless you haven't been doing your cardio. I'm sorry. I'm sick of hearing it. Anytime anyone gets a dominant position, throws a strike. Oh, he might pass himself out. Whoa.
Well, see, this is what got Tyron Woodley really mad and was wondering about racism, because every time Tyron Woodley did a movement, it's like, oh, well, Tyron Woodley's going to get tired because he's such a big guy. Like, he's such an explosive guy. And it was like these like weird-ass microaggressions that
he's so black.
But you get what I'm saying? There's like these weird-ass microaggressions. And Tyron was like, what the fuck? Like,
his corner's going to have to get him some Kool-Aid after this one. Like Jesus. Say less, guys.
Yeah. And then you know what ended up happening? Tyron really calls him out for it, and then it's like, oh, you race baiter. It's like, no, like you're throwing these weird-ass like analogies out.
I'll say one thing about Tyron Woodley, though. When you throw like 4 strikes around and do nothing, people are like, I mean, is he tired? I don't think he's tired. I just think he has a problem pulling the trigger. But
which is not something you could say for Costa, because Costa was still like throwing hard the entire fight and won that last round the entire.
Guys, I love you.
Before you go,
I gotta go. My dog's crying.
Okay, fine.
No, go ahead.
Do you have any thoughts on Grant Dawson?
Yeah, man, he's a Krause product. I love his wrestling, but you got to be able to keep that up for 3 rounds. I think the decision to make it a draw surprised me, but in retrospect, I don't disagree with it. Not much to say about it other than that. I think that Grant Dawson will be interesting in this division. I think Rick Glenn announced that he is, a tough test as well. I mean, he beat our boy Gavin Tucker, so we're gonna have to see. I think that's all I have to say on it. But I gotta go.
All right.
Okay, yeah. So the next fight that we're going to be talking about is Grant Dawson versus Rick Glenn. Michael, what did you think about this fight?
Yeah, Grant Dawson. I'm with Stefano. He needs to keep it up over three. Because he did a lot of interesting things. Great grappler. Rick Glenn definitely made a good account of himself as well. But I think clearly in terms of like the technical skill difference, you got to give it to Grant Dawson. Like he's got a lot of good things about him. Very exciting. I like what he can do. But yeah, you got to keep it up over three. You
Yeah,
got to keep it up
man.
over 15.
I feel like, first of all, I feel like he knew there was a huge wrestling advantage, or he had a huge wrestling advantage over Rick Glenn. And to an untrained eye, he looked like he was kind of spamming takedowns. Kind of like chain, which some people could call it chaining, some people call it spamming, but Rick Glenn was doing apart from the first round where he got taken down once and dominated for pretty much the entire round. In that second round, like Rick Glenn had kind of figured out how to like defend them, and Grant would just stand up, switch levels, go right back into the takedown. You know what I mean? So like I felt like he got a bit not overconfident, but like because of his confidence in wrestling, he felt like he could just like chain and spam takedowns. And what was frustrating is that he would get the takedown, and I don't think he did enough in those positions. In my humble opinion, he was definitely winning the fight by the second round. It was 2-0 going to that third round. But I actually think that you know was it me or did Rick Glenn's jujitsu maybe look a tad bit better? Because on the ground, he wasn't taking, he was getting punched, but he wasn't taking like crazy damage.
I think I get what you're trying to say. Like it
You know what?
seemed like he was mitigating kind of like the offense, the top game of
Like,
Grant Dawson,
well, and then you compare that to when Rick Glenn gets on top, like
and he's
for that
styling.
third, he's styling on him,
Yeah.
and I'm just like, wait, I get that he's tired, but like at a certain point, as you said, like these guys train to be tired, right? So like there should be, he should have something left in the gas tank to like use his technique to like get out of these positions.
Well,
And I feel like, go on, sorry.
no. Sorry. Go ahead. You
No,
were
no,
in.
I was just gonna say, I feel like Rick Glenn showed more from, because if you remember in that first round, Rick Glenn is defending. Grant Dawson has Rick Glenn's back for what must be like 2-3 minutes, and he isn't able to do anything really. Like he doesn't really go for the choke too much. Like he tries, but like he doesn't make any like real convincing movements towards it. And he's kind of just like striking him like from weird angles, not really able to like get into like good positions to land like any kind of decent ground and pound, versus Rick Glenn, who when he gets into the position, not only is he landing like decent shots and like really there, had he changed some of those shots a little bit more in that third round, could have stopped the fight. And even when there's 30 seconds left in the round, what does he do? He goes for a submission. Like there was none of that from Grant Dawson, in my
Yeah.
opinion. What do you think?
Um, you know what? I do agree that the jujitsu by Rick Glenn in the third looked better or looked a little more effective than Grant Dawson in the first two rounds. But you know what it comes down to? It comes down to efficiency because Grant Dawson, and I'm willing to bet. I'm not like I don't know. I'm not in the corners. I'm not in the camps. But I'm willing to bet Grant Dawson, in some corner of his mind, thought he could run over Rick Glenn. And
Right. I feel like you felt like you could take a round off after those first two rounds,
yeah,
and then
plus
got
that.
stopped.
Yeah, plus that. And so as a result, so he thought, oh, okay, like it's a Max Roscoff effect, right? Where it's like Max Roscoff, remember, versus Austin Hubbard, where he was 5-0, and for the first five fights, none of them went past like I think like the first minute of the second round. So he was kind of used to this idea of just running guys over. Meets Austin Hubbard, who survives and all of a sudden puts it on him. And I think it wasn't that. It was definitely not that in this fight. But I think in some corner of Grant Dawson's mind, he really thought he could roll over not Austin Hoover, Rick Glenn, and take him down, speak with him, do the dominate and do his thing. And to his credit, in the first round, he kind of was, and then in the second round, he definitely did get the better of the round. So it's this weird confirmation bias where it's like you're doing the thing that you shouldn't do, but because you're winning with it, you keep doing it, and then eventually comes back to bite you. So I think I wouldn't necessarily say it's because Grant Dawson is worse at jiu-jitsu or worse at jiu-jitsu for MMA, more so than it is when you do things inefficiently, you end up putting yourself in bad positions down the road. See Hidalgo Vieira versus what's that cat's name? You know who I'm talking about? The one he lost to by
was it Dave Gonzalez? I can't even remember who it was.
But the fight I'm talking about.
Where he tries to steamroll him for 1.5 rounds and eventually gets submitted.
Yeah, and this is a jiu-jitsu world champion getting submitted by a purple belt. Like, imagine that, right? These are the things that efficiency in MMA really does matter, and I've been blessed that talking about these things and speaking about it on this podcast helps me remember that when I go into my fight. So all that to say that I think it was more so that than it was a case of a technical deficiency,
That's fair, and I do think by that third round he was this is one scenario where I kind of disagree with what we had just been lamenting about. By that third round, he was gassed, completely.
But what would have been great? What we're trying to explain is clearly when he's gassed, you say he's gassed. Not when he's done 4 movements over, breathes to recover, and then you're like, oh, he's gassed. Oh my god.
They said in the second round when he was chaining those takedowns, they were like, this guy is gonna gas out. I don't care who you are. If you were wrestling for 10 minutes, you're gonna be tired. And they were kind of right there. To give them some credit, the UFC commentators were kind of right in that one. But still, man, he was so gassed by that third round that I just feel Glenn being more of a veteran kind of noticed it and was like, okay, this is my opportunity. Yeah, exactly. I thought it was.
I will say this too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, with all due respect, I thought it was a very generous 10-8. I think had he not gone for that submission, I could see a world where that's a 10-9. Literally, I don't know how. Just you.
I thought it was 2 rounds to 1.
Yeah, I thought it was 2 rounds to 1. Fair, it's fair and square, but that was a pretty generous 10-8. But I didn't complain when I heard the score. I wasn't mad at it. Because I do think and I think you in an alternative universe, you could even make the case for that first round being closer to the 10-8s. I can't see at least in my eyes the huge difference between other than going for the submission. Once again, the first round.
Well, I mean, it was one guy, right? Who said? Was it one guy or 2 guys who?
No, it was 2. It was a majority.
Yeah, 10-8. So it wasn't not everyone agreed with a 10-8.
There's only 3 judges. One of the guys gave it to I would probably go with what the Dawson guy said. And give it 29-28. Sorry, I don't know the judge's name, but give it to Dawson 29-28. But I wasn't mad with 28-28.
No, I wasn't mad about it, but I do see where you're talking about. I had 2 rounds to 1. What I would say though is you made kind of an interesting point. I can't even remember. Jesus.
The first round, third round, or what was that?
Geez, it wasn't about the judging. There was something there about I can't remember. Anyway, all right. No, it wasn't about being gassed. It was man, I can't remember. It's gonna kill me, and I'm gonna remember as soon as we get off air. All right, never mind. You know what? It is what it is. Any other points you want to talk about before we talk about the podcast?
You owe me a soda. I did also watch the Francisco Trinaldo, Dave Grant, I guess is his name, fight. That one was one of the weirdest scored fights I have ever seen in my life. It was 27-29, 29-27, 29-27 to Francisco Trinaldo. How can how can two judges literally have it scored like completely? I mean, don't get me wrong, it was definitely a hard fight to call because it depends on what you value.
I,
Um,
hey, you're turning into me every
I'm
day.
turning into you. I am turning you because I thought Dave Grant did a good job of like staying on the outside, using his long weapons well, like his jab. His jab, he was just like peppering that jab out, which really was giving Trinaldo a problem. Trinaldo was going for the big left hooks, going for the huge kicks, and I, I don't know. Personally, like I wasn't too fussed about the result, but I can think like Dave Grant might feel a little bit hardly done by there because like I thought it was a way more competitive fight than the 29-27 in my opinion. So yeah.
Yeah, no, fair. It's fair. Yeah, no, like I don't really have an argument for you there. It's like weird how like judges can really like be such an island on things. But again, effective striking is up to interpretation. It's weird to say it like that, but effective striking is up to interpretation. Because if you value technical ability and jabbing and fighting behind your jab and mitigating damage, yeah, David Grant would probably get the
I
nod for
mean,
you.
he did a catch that takedown for you. He got a knockdown, not even a takedown, a knockdown. How do you give it 29-27 when you got a knockdown
Hmm.
in like what, the second round? Like I don't know. I just thought it was
Yeah.
weird.
But then at the same time, if Francisco Trinaldo is clearly landing haymakers, which he was to his credit, especially towards like the latter part of the fight, is that not more effective because he's landing harder punches? So it's weird. It's weird. It's weird. Again, when you look at like how they score things, like this is
You got to
again.
give that first round, in my opinion. You have to give that first round to Dave Grant. The question
Oh,
then becomes
okay.
like round 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Like I hear you. Like he was landing like the more powerful shots, but it was kind of like the Vittori. It was weird because I took the exact opposite standpoint in the Vittori versus Costa fight. And also remember, Trinaldo got taken a point taken off. So a 29-27 means you thought that Trinaldo won every single round, which to
Yeah.
me just literally doesn't make sense.
No,
That
that's
literally just doesn't make sense.
that's insane. Yeah. And I think one round would be 10-8. It would be a 10-8. So
Crazy. Like, what is this scorecard? Like, are you kidding me?
yeah.
And
Easy.
and on this one, as I said, I felt like the eye poke, the point taken off for eye poke was completely fair because he did like I heard him like vociferously telling it in the beginning to stop. After the first round was done, he told him to stop keeping his hands like that. The commentators were making fun of him for saying, point your fingers to the sky, and then he pokes him in the eye, and it wasn't like he's doing a natural movement. He literally just like reaches and just like pokes him in the eye.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That's a weird thing to figure out because yeah, like my friend always used to say this. I think Stefano actually says this too. How many eye pokes do you see in Pride? You know, it's like a running joke. It's like yeah, the fingers don't really poke you because they're pointed downward. So when you go out there, naturally it comes downward into the face, right? Your knuckles go downward in there. So I think it's just a question that the gloves allow you to open and therefore allows you to really get those fingers up into the face. Um, yeah,
I mean, that's a good question though on that, and I'm by no means a UFC fighter or any kind of pro, but today I was doing some MMA in where we would do
wait, wait,
striking and
wait,
then
wait, wait, wait,
transition.
wait. Let's save this for ask questions where we have a very very nice transition that I've always wanted to show off, but we never get to.
All right, okay, fine. Transition.
Yes.
Transition. Okay, here's a question. Ask an MMA fighter. So today I was doing it where doing it. Okay, today I was striking, and then we transitioned to like jujitsu or the ground game, and my thing was like it is near impossible to try and do like play like jujitsu using like boxing gloves. It's almost impossible. Like you can't get like the right grip on it. Like you can't like even like hand fight the same. Like it's so difficult. So on the one hand, you have people saying that the UFC gloves, like, are too open, which leads to eye poke. But then, by having more like rounded gloves, don't you think that would affect like the jiu-jitsu game of people?
It's an interesting conversation. You did see, okay, how much you did see less submissions in Pride, although there were definitely a lot. You saw less submissions, I think, on average per matchup. But how much of that was because soccer kicks were allowed, knees to the head, knees to a grounded opponent were allowed. You could do a lot more things to mitigate stuff to prevent somebody from really like fishing for a takedown over and over again. Like, for example, we just saw DJ get knocked out as he tried to fish for a takedown by a dude that he's probably better than, all things considered, right? Because of a knee to a head. And how much of that was, the Pride gloves being very kind of bulky and like pointing you downward. But what I will say though is Bellator, I think from a submission perspective, they're pretty like even. Like I would probably have to see the numbers on that, but
Yeah,
I think
check that.
yeah, I think that like submission wise, they're pretty like like one for one. And Bellator has a downward glove thing too. So I think because you know what, and here's the thing is that when you're doing jujitsu, I like to think of it as my hands never like while my hands will open, I never think of my hands as individual digits, like my fingers as individual digits. I think of them as two. The first four are the four are one, and the thumb is kind of like a loose hanging out thing that I don't even want to use in the first place. Whenever I grip somebody's arm, my thumb comes over the top on their arm. It doesn't grab like this, right? When I'm grabbing somebody with two hands, it's not this or this, it's this, right? Or S grip, right? So you're thinking of your hands as one anyway, right?
Fair enough, fair enough. I guess that does kind of explain it. Because I'm just thinking for specifically like that grip, like I just, yeah, it would make sense to kind of have as much movement in the fingers as possible so that you can like really like sink them in, as opposed to something a little bit more like Muay Thai or boxing, where it's like a closed fist and you literally can't grapple at all. So I don't know. Just a thought, but I'll take what you said.
Yeah.
Um,
Like no, my whole thing is I don't think it would I don't I think it would affect it a little bit. Like definitely if like boxing gloves, hell no. Like you're not you're definitely gonna get some it's definitely harder. And I do think there is something to it, but I don't necessarily think it's like like look, greasing I think is way worse than like boxing glove jujitsu. Like, in terms of like getting a submission off,
mm,
in my opinion. Because if a guy's sweaty, like good fucking luck versus like if you know, if you can't grip, because again, you can if you get try right now, if you get your boxing gloves on, you can still do an S grip and you can still do hand over hand with by opening up the boxing glove and putting it over the top, right? It's
but
just
at
harder.
jujitsu, you're not wearing any gloves. I think that's the difference. I am below a white belt, but I think that's the difficulty. Like in actual jujitsu, you're not using any gloves, so you're practicing. Grabbing your arm, grabbing your bicep. You
Mhm.
can try grabbing your like bicep with a boxing glove. Like you can do it, but like you're not gonna get the
You're
same like
you're gonna
grip.
slip. No, for sure. No, I'm with you. Like it definitely will affect you, and I do think it. I do think with gloves like pointed downward, it could, but like if you're making an active effort to do jujitsu moves and your hand does open, you're making the active effort to open. It's not like it's stopping you. It's not restricting you like let's say a boxing glove would. You know what I'm trying to say? So
Yeah,
like while I think there is maybe something to it because of that, like MMA is a game of inches and split seconds. Like if you're like spending time on a submission, especially when deception is kind of the game in jiu-jitsu, like at the highest levels, maybe like no, like seriously, I think there's something to it, but I don't necessarily think it's the end of the world for a number of reasons. Like one is that like you don't think of your hands as individual digits, right? In jiu-jitsu at least. Two is that, a lot of these submissions are kind of based in like holding people down with position first. There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons as to why I don't think it's the end all be all.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, do we have any other listener questions?
No, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. I just
Okay.
wanted to throw it out.
Well, you know what? I'm just gonna start. That's gonna be when you ask a question, a segment. I'm just gonna start asking just like random questions that pop into my head from my forays into MMA. All right. Well, Mike, do you want to take us home?
Yeah,
Who's
sure.
gonna threaten? Nobody. Yeah. No, you threaten the
Come
children.
on.
Do it. Do it.
Why are you not threatening the children? I'm the guy who ends at the end.
Who threatens children? I don't believe in that. But if you guys want to threaten children, you can go ahead.
Listen, children. If you do not subscribe to this podcast, I'm going to take you out to the back like old Gassy, and sorry, not old Gassy. What's the old Yella? Old Yella, right? What's old Yella? And take you out to pasture. All right. Subscribe. Tell your friends about it. Subscribe to the Spotify. Subscribe to the Google Podcasts. Subscribe to the Apple Podcasts. We put the audio version up. We put the video version on YouTube. We even have titles and chapters in our YouTube so that you can pick specific parts you want to listen to. Do it. Do it now. Or else. And I'll leave it at that. Or else.
That was a very descriptive in a non-threatening way. Like you're literally just describing what we have in the podcast as a means of threatening them. But fair enough. Well, Michael.
In this crazy mixture. Sorry, go ahead.
To play us out, what does that mean?
Fuck it, we'll do it live. In this crazy mixed up world where, the cases are going down, but stay vigilant, stay safe, people. Just remember, you got three things. You got life, you got family, and this podcast. Take it easy, everybody.